When we speak of the present moment, we are not referring to a single point in time or a narrow sliver between past and future. We are speaking of the most expansive dimension of your existence, the one place where life is actually happening. Awareness of the present moment is not something you achieve, it is something you return to. It is a remembering of your natural state. The mind is used to wandering, to searching, to grasping at experiences, but the present moment asks nothing of you. It simply invites you to arrive. As you begin to pay attention to the now, notice how the body responds. The breath softens. The heartbeat slows its urgency. The nervous system begins to release subtle layers of tension you may not have been aware you were holding. This is the intelligence of the body reminding you that peace is not something you chase. It is something you uncover when you gently disengage from the chaos of overthinking. The present moment becomes the sanctuary where the mind can finally rest. Allow yourself to become curious about this awareness. Feel the air around you, the sensations resting in your hands, the gentle rise of your breath. When you are fully here, even the simplest experience becomes alive. The mind tends to believe that peace exists somewhere else, after a goal is reached, after a problem is solved, after the world aligns itself with your expectations. But the truth is much more profound. Peace appears the moment you stop searching for it. Presence is not found by effort. It unfolds when effort dissolves. The present moment is not limited to stillness either. It's a dynamic field of energy, constantly changing, constantly renewing itself. Thoughts will arise, and instead of resisting them, you can simply watch them. Observe them as they come and go, like clouds drifting across a vast sky. You are not the cloud, you are the sky. When you shift into this awareness, you stop identifying with the temporary movements of the mind and start identifying with the spaciousness that holds everything. This awareness brings a gentle clarity. You begin to recognize that much of your suffering comes from believing every thought that passes through you. When you observe thoughts instead of becoming them, you free yourself from the mental habits that keep you trapped in worry and confusion. Presence gives you the ability to choose your inner experience rather than react to it. It gives you space, the space to breathe, to realize, to reset. Feel yourself settling into this space now. Notice how the present moment has no conflict. Conflict only exists when the mind argues with reality, when it wishes for something to be different. But right here, in this breath, everything is simply what it is. There is no resistance. There is only awareness. And in this awareness, a well of peace begins to open. You don't need to force it. You don't need to earn it. Just allow it to rise naturally. You may begin to sense this subtle aliveness flowing through your body. This aliveness is always present, but you only feel it when you are truly here. It is the essence of your being, a quiet pulse that carries wisdom beyond words. When you listen closely, you'll notice that this inner aliveness communicates not through thoughts, but through a deep sense of knowing. It guides you effortlessly, gently, patiently. Awareness becomes your inner compass. And as you stay here, you might feel the edges of your identity softening, not disappearing but relaxing. You are no longer the tightly held stories you repeat to yourself. You are no longer the roles, the labels, or the expectations placed upon you. In presence, you return to the truth beneath all of it, a truth that is spacious, peaceful, and infinitely whole. This is the gift of the present moment. It reveals to you that nothing is missing. It shows you that you are already complete. Let yourself rest in this completeness. It is not temporary, it is not fragile, it is the constant background of your life. Even when challenges arise, this awareness remains steady, like a calm ocean beneath surface waves. When you learn to return to it again and again, you begin to live from a grounded, conscious state. You move through life with more ease, more compassion, and more clarity. You no longer react from fear, you respond from presence. This is the quiet power of being here. In this moment there is peace. In this moment there is clarity. In this moment, you are enough. Return to this moment, and you return to yourself. The mind has a natural habit of drifting into the past and leaping into the future. It replays old memories, rehearses old stories, and carries echoes of experiences that no longer belong to this moment. At the same time, it projects into the future, creating scenarios built on hope, fear, expectation, or imagination. This movement of thought is not wrong, it is simply what the mind has been conditioned to do. But when these thoughts become your main reality, you lose touch with the immediacy of life unfolding right now. Releasing past and future mental noise is not about suppressing thoughts, it's about loosening your attachment to them so you can return to the clarity of the present moment. When a thought from the past arises, observe how quickly it tries to pull you into its narrative. The mind may revisit an old hurt, a decision you wish had gone differently, a memory that carries an emotional imprint. You may feel the body respond, tightness in the chest, a heaviness around the shoulders, or a subtle shift in your breathing. This is the somatic residue of unresolved moments. But you do not need to relive them. You only need to witness them. As soon as you recognize the memory, gently remind yourself that the event is not happening now. It belongs to another time, another version of you, and in this simple recognition, you free yourself from carrying the emotional weight of something long gone. Thoughts about the future carry a different quality. They often appear as anticipation, worry, planning, or imagining outcomes you cannot control. The mind believes that by constantly projecting forward, it can create certainty. Yet this very effort is what creates anxiety. The future is a field of possibilities, but it is not a place you can live. When the mind races ahead, it disconnects you from your inner stability. You begin to chase what hasn't happened instead of appreciating what is here. By becoming aware of this movement, you can bring yourself back gently, without judgment. Notice how both past and future thoughts have something in common. They pull your energy away from the present moment. They fragment your awareness. They create mental noise that clouds your intuition, your peace, and your ability to respond consciously. This noise is not your enemy. It is simply a signal that you are momentarily lost in the mind's habitual patterns. When you observe it with compassion rather than resistance, it begins to lose its power over you. You can practice this right now. As a thought arises, instead of diving into the story, pause and watch it. See it as a movement of energy, temporary passing, without substance unless you feed it with attention. Notice its shape, its emotional tone, the way it tries to pull you. And then, instead of following it, let it drift away like a leaf carried downstream. You don't need to push it away. You simply allow it to move naturally without holding on. With time, you begin to understand a profound truth: you are not your thoughts. You are the awareness behind them. This realization is the doorway to inner freedom. When you stop identifying with mental noise, you discover a quiet, steady presence beneath it. This presence is not affected by the past or worried about the future. It is untouched, spacious, and profoundly peaceful. From this awareness, you can witness the mind without being controlled by it. As the noise settles, the body begins to relax. The breath deepens. The nervous system shifts into harmony. You start to feel a sense of lightness, as though you have set down a heavy load you didn't realize you were carrying. This is the natural intelligence of your being responding to the release of mental pressure. Peace doesn't come from controlling the mind, it comes from stepping outside the mind's constant commentary. When you learn to let thoughts pass like waves rather than anchor yourself in them, you reclaim your energy, you reclaim your clarity, you reclaim your presence. The past no longer dictates your identity, and the future no longer dictates your peace. You begin to experience life as it truly is, fluid, alive, and constantly new in each moment. You realize you don't need to cling to what was or worry about what will be. Everything you need is available to you right here, in the quiet space of now, and in this space you find the freedom you've been seeking. There is a part of you that has always been steady, calm, and untouched by the changing conditions of life. This inner self is not defined by your accomplishments, your struggles, your roles, or the expectations of others. It exists beneath all of that, like a quiet current flowing beneath the surface of your daily experiences. Connecting with your inner self is not about creating something new, it is about unveiling what has always been there. It is the gentle shift from doing to being, from striving to allowing, from reacting to understanding. As you begin to turn inward, notice how different this experience feels from the constant activity of the outside world. Out there, everything demands your attention, responsibilities, conversations, plans, distractions. But within you, there is a space that asks for nothing. It simply welcomes you. You don't have to impress your inner self. You don't have to explain anything to it. It already knows you completely. It understands your fears, your hopes, your hidden dreams, and even your quiet disappointments. It holds all of it with compassion. You can start connecting with this inner self through something as simple as awareness of your breath. Each breath pulls you closer to the truth of who you are. Each exhale releases the noise that stands between you and your deeper knowing. Notice the warmth of breath, the rhythm of its movement, the way it softens the mind without effort. This is not meditation as a technique. This is returning home. This is remembering the part of you that is always whole. As you sink deeper into this awareness, the layers of identity begin to loosen. The temporary stories you've carried, who you should be, who you used to be, who others expect you to be, start to dissolve. At first, the mind might resist. It likes the familiar boundaries, even if they are limiting. But the more you rest in presence, the more naturally those boundaries expand. You begin to sense your inner self not as a small, separate identity, but as an open field of consciousness that holds your entire experience. This inner field is quiet, but it is not empty. It is filled with subtle intelligence. The kind of intelligence that keeps your heart beating without your command, that heals your body without your instruction, that guides you with intuition long before the mind understands why. When you connect with your inner self, you tap into this deeper wisdom. You feel it not as a thought, but as a sense of alignment, like something inside you clicks into place. There is a moment when you begin to realize that this inner self is not trying to fix you. It is not trying to shape your life into a certain outcome. It is simply inviting you to experience life with more openness and less resistance. It whispers, not in words, but in presence. It invites you to soften your grip, to breathe more fully, to trust the space within you that has always known the way forward. When you listen to this inner guidance, your decisions become clearer. You begin to respond instead of react. You stop forcing life to conform to your expectations and start flowing with what life offers. There is a sense of ease that emerges, not because everything becomes perfect, but because you are no longer fighting yourself. You are aligned with something deeper, something reliable, something real. As this connection deepens, you may begin to sense the difference between the voice of the mind and the voice of the inner self. The mind is louder. It analyzes, judges, predicts, and compares. The inner self is gentle. It speaks through intuition, through peace, through a quiet sense of rightness. The more you tune in, the more natural it becomes to listen. You stop looking outside for validation. You stop seeking answers in noise. You begin to trust yourself, not the conditioned self, but the true self beneath it. In this space, compassion arises naturally. You begin to treat yourself with softness instead of pressure. You start recognizing that mistakes are not failures, but stepping stones. You allow yourself to grow instead of forcing yourself to be perfect. This compassion becomes the foundation for how you relate to the world. The more connected you are within, the more gently you connect with others. When you are anchored in your inner self, you move through life differently. You speak with clarity. You act with intentions. You listen with presence. You begin to feel that life is not happening to you, but flowing through you. You become aware of the quiet truth that you are not separate from anything. You are part of the same intelligence that moves through all creation. And in that realization, something inside you relaxes completely. You no longer need to become anything. You only need to be who you truly are. This is the moment you meet yourself. When presence begins to settle into your life, it becomes more than a momentary experience. It becomes a way of living. It becomes the quiet lens through which you see the world with more clarity, more compassion, and more ease. Living with conscious presence every day doesn't require dramatic change. It doesn't ask you to withdraw from life or escape your responsibilities. Instead, it invites you to infuse your ordinary moments with a deeper level of awareness. It invites you to approach your life from a place of inner steadiness rather than reactivity. Presence begins with the simplest experiences. When you wake in the morning, before the mind rushes into its familiar scripts, take a single breath. Feel the warmth of your body, the softness of the air, the stillness that exists between night and day. This breath becomes an anchor, a reminder that life is not something you must run toward or escape from. It is something you meet one moment at a time. As you rise, notice the sensations in your body, the rhythm of your movements. Even the simple act of placing your feet on the ground becomes an opportunity to arrive fully. Throughout the day, life will offer countless invitations to leave the present moment. Emails, conversations, expectations, memories, worries, they all pull on your attention like threads tugging in different directions. Conscious presence is not about eliminating these experiences. It's about choosing how you meet them. Instead of reacting out of habit, you pause. You breathe. You return. You allow the moment to reveal itself before you respond. This small shift changes everything. It transforms hurriedness into clarity, stress into steadiness, and routine into awareness. When you are truly present, you begin to notice the subtle quality of each moment. You taste your food instead of eating on autopilot. You listen to someone with full attention instead of waiting for your turn to speak. You walk with awareness of the ground beneath you instead of rushing toward the next task. These are not spiritual achievements. They are simple human acts made sacred by your attention. And when attention is anchored in presence, life itself becomes richer, more vibrant, more meaningful. Presence also brings a sense of emotional transparency. You start to feel your emotions as they arise rather than suppressing them or being swept away by them. When frustration appears, you recognize it. When sadness moves through your chest, you acknowledge it. When joy arises, you let it expand. Presence creates space for emotions to flow without defining you. Instead of reacting unconsciously, you witness with compassion. This witnessing transforms your relationship with yourself. You become more gentle, more forgiving, more patient. And that inner gentleness naturally extends outward into your relationships with others. One of the most powerful aspects of conscious presence is the shift from control to awareness. The mind constantly tries to manage life, to shape outcomes, to protect you from uncertainty. But presence teaches you that you don't need to control everything to feel safe. You only need to be here. The more you live in this awareness, the more you begin to trust the unfolding of life. You learn that solutions appear more effortlessly when you are calm. Inspiration flows more easily when you are grounded. Decisions become clearer when the mind is not scattered across 1,000 imagined scenarios. As presence deepens, even the challenges of life take on a different quality. Instead of resisting them, you meet them with openness. You notice that beneath every difficulty lies an invitation to expand your awareness, to grow your resilience, to refine your understanding. Presence helps you see that nothing is happening against you. Everything is a teacher, guiding you toward greater inner alignment. Living with conscious presence is not about perfection. It is about returning again and again. You may drift into thought, get lost in tension, or fall into old patterns, but the moment you become aware of it, you have already returned. The return is the practice. The return is the transformation. Each time you come back to presence, you strengthen your connection to the deeper dimension of who you are. Over time, this presence becomes not just something you practice, but something you embody. It becomes the quiet strength beneath your actions, the spaciousness in your interactions, the calm at the center of your being. You begin to move through the world with a sense of grace, not because life is easier, but because you are clearer, more grounded, more alive. You start to realize that the true purpose of presence is not to change the world around you, but to change the way you experience it from within. And as you live this way, you discover that every moment is an opportunity to return to yourself,